it seems like a lot of people don't actually understand what H1B visas are. Oh fuck. Which let's talk about that for a little bit. Um, I think H1B visas aren't a good thing, and people are hold on before you say that. I want to make myself extremely clear on why I say that. I think that the idea of immigration and people coming for work is absolutely fine. I think it's fine, right? Um, in a perfect society, people coming to like get work or have opportunities or so on and so forth from other countries is absolutely fine. I think immigration is a fine thing. Right? I don't get like people will be like, oh, they come in for white communities and all this other shit, but like, you're not. They take white jobs, okay? The jobs you didn't have in the first place. So like, yeah, it's people who are against H1B visas are just a different like flavor of racist. I'm against H1B visas because of the fact that they just feel like, how do I say, I'm trying to like think of like the proper words for it. They feel like licenses for slavery, right? It makes it easier for people to come in to the country just to be exploited for cheaper labor and for cheaper use of people because they are foreign to the nation and therefore can be gotten away with by having mistreatment done onto them, right? So we're going to go through a little bit of what Blue Sky has to say about H-1B visas. I prefer Blue Sky to Twitter because at least there's a few more leftists on there. But hey, I would rather read through a bunch of liberal shit than like conservative alt-right Nazi conspiracy. So yeah, here we're gonna take a look at that here. Let's see, what's this first one? Is it just me, or is it a total coincidence that after angering the racist MAGA base with his support of H-1B visas and Indian IT workers, Musk suddenly became obsessed in recent days with demonizing Pakistanis in the UK and is now winning back the praise of racists? Oh, well, of course. Oh, shit, of course they are, of course. The big thing with Elon and what's going on is that he has essentially created a civil war, right? And it's a wonderful demonstration of what was going to happen in the first place. People like Reupers and people on the alt right, they are very nationalistic. They only want people to have jobs if they are a part of the nation. They only want people who align with American values to be the ones to be exploited and to be the exploiters, right? That's just how fascism works. They want it to only be their people, right? They don't want other people coming in because obviously xenophobia and racism and along those lines. But when it comes to Elon is absolutely not being like inclusive or anything along this lines. He is not wanting H-1B visas because of the idea that, oh, we need inclusivity. No, it's because of the fact that he understands it's cheap labor, right? It reminds me of how back during the slave trade, there were people who were extremely racist but were abolitionists because of the fact that they believed that the idea of allowing slaves into their nation was dirtying their nation. It was making it worse instead of having people of their own nation being the workers, right? And you even saw the sentiment with some individuals within the North of America, where the reason why they were against slavery was not because of the fact they thought it was an absolute detriment to like human rights and the like, but because of the fact that it was the idea of, oh, well, they shouldn't be here. They should be in their own country, right? America is for Americans, not for Africans, and the like. So that's one of the reasons why you see this split between two sects of MAGA, and it makes entirely fantastic sense because, of course, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't they? Fascism tends to eat at itself. But let's continue on. Let's see, another thing here. Lamafau, r/anti-work, is currently praising the Bernie Sanders statements and referring to H1B ones as scab visas. I don't think that, who knows how that is actually supposed to be, like, referring to H1B visas. If they're saying that the people who have them are scabs, or if they're trying to, like, or the people that are relying on the people with them are scabbing. I think it's definitely the latter of that. As I've already said, that the people and corporations that are relying on H-1B visas are not doing so for inclusivity, no matter what they say. It is because the fact it will allow for cheap labor. It is, again, like I was just mentioning with the whole idea of that divide. Of course, they want it because it's cheap labor, right? Elon will go and praise Indian IT workers, not because he thinks that India is a fantastic country that really offers amazing opportunities in computer science programs, but because he believes and buys into the racist idea that all Indians are good with IT, and without understanding the conditions of which brings those into the first place, and why things like scams and computer scams come from India in the first place. And it's due to the fact of very greedy and predatory practices that are allowed to persist over there due to just how ingrained things like capitalism are within their society. And the socialist movements that they have over there are working incredibly hard to fight against. But yeah, that's why, right? It's the same thing that he would say that, like, oh, I need to hire some Asians because they'd be good at programming, right? Or they'd be really good at math. Or, oh man, I need to hire some black people because they're really good, like, labor workers, right? It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same racist idea of hiring specific races because of a racist idea, and H-1B visas just expedite that. It continues to influence that. Democrats who support the right-wing immigration bill are now calling Bernie racist for being critical of how H-1B visas exploit foreign workers. So yeah, they aren't learning at all. Well, of course not. Like, I mean, I don't like Bernie either. I think Bernie is just a tool, right? He's not a real socialist. He's not anything along those lines, even if he started out as one. I think he does certainly have some ingrained socialist ideas in him, but he's one of those, I guess you could consider elders of the movement who have gotten so old to in their age that they really aren't going to change because they're at a point in their lives where they know that they're probably not going to see it in their lifetime, so they've kind of just given up. And you can also see this with Richard Wolff. Richard Wolff is infinitely better than Bernie. But Richard Wolff, one of the things that he likes to do is he doesn't really nail home anything about how to really solidify and get worker liberation beyond the idea of cooperatives. There was a fantastic video about this, and it was from the YouTube channel Socialism for All, who did a video reacting to his debate with Destiny, and a lot of what he said in that video was absolutely just on the point. About why I myself hadn't really liked Richard Wolff. I thought I was not one of the people that thought that he was like pandering or was like talking down to people whenever he was explaining things. For example, whenever he was talking to Hakeem, he he definitely kept like trying to reiterate the basics of socialism, despite the fact that Hakeem like is such a well-read individual and he knows what he's talking about. But Hakeem here is younger than Richard Wolff, and you can clearly tell that it's one of these situations where it's a younger individual of the movement trying to ask an elder of the movement, okay, now what? What do you think we need to do next? What is it that you think we have to do next? And Richard Wolff tries to like put it behind almost like riddles in a way. And he's like, well, here's the basics. Now figure it out for yourself. Hey, dude, that's a perfect thing whenever you're trying to like shift the perspective of like conservatives and the like, but it does not help when you are talking to a well-read individual who is trying to get your perspective on things. So yeah, that's my perspective on Bernie Sanders. I think he was absolutely right in his thing. I didn't read all of it. It didn't like come off as like nativist or anything along those lines of being like, no, we can't have immigration or anything along those lines. But I think we need to be absolutely critical of H1B visas. As I've already said throughout this entire thing, we just need to be absolutely critical of this because of the fact that it is not supposed to be something along the lines of like inclusivity and like being woke. It's nothing along those lines, right? You have to remember that even things like visas, as something that have existed for so long, they have a history of being fought for by socialist or progressive like movements, but are only being used now within and are being wedded to the capitalist mode of production. That is the only thing in which that they are like meant to benefit, especially when it is along these lines. H1B visas, like work visas, are in the title, right? It guarantees you work and it guarantees other people your labor, and they know because you have that visa, the moment if they like say anything and get it taken away from you, you are out of the country. They can like pay you as little as possible. You can now see with my explanation of that, of just how predatory that is. It is so incredibly predatory, and I think that Elon understands that, and the Groypers, Chuds, whatever the fuck you want to call them, the other side that have been like, they're like turning away from him, aren't understanding that. They think that he's going woke, but if he like took the mask off for a second and was like, but it's cheap labor. It's cheap labor. We need cheap labor to like help America, right? From his perspective, many of these people who are like, oh, I hate Indians, would be like, oh, fuck yeah, get the Indians in here. Yeah, hell yeah. Let's, fuck it. Cheap labor and all that other money, and like the money that isn't going to them goes to other workers that are above them, or like other things along those lines, like whatever weird conceptions they have about capitalism and how it works. Like, oh, they be fucking on board with it. Fuck yeah, hell yeah. Slave labor, dude. That's exactly what they would be saying. The picture that is emerging of this Vegas Cybertruck bomber Matthew Lisberger is one of a once loyal Trump supporter that felt betrayed by Trump's flip-flop on H1B visas after being seduced by Elon Musk. Well, of course, you see a lot of the most recent attacks and bombings that are actual attacks and the like it tends to be these people. Like you might have one person that is like ISIS, and then it's like, oh fuck, War on Terror 2.0 guys, but then you have like 6 fucking white people that go and bomb and shoot people, and they're like, thoughts and prayers, oh my god, thoughts and prayers, do it again, thoughts and prayers, do it again. Right? That is exactly how it's going. Update number 220 of blah 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 blah. Elmo is banning Groyper accounts all over Twitter/X because they pushed back on his stance regarding H1B visas. The infighting continues. I mean, I've already mentioned in this video about how like fascism tends to eat at itself, but we've already seen that he's been able to gain back a lot of the grapers because of the fact that he is like, look, fuck Pakistanis, right, and all this other shit. So the moment they're like, oh, he is racist, oh, he's being based again, he's able to pull them back in. And I think that if they really, really, really like land home on the idea that like H1B visas isn't supposed to be some woke thing, it's just for cheap labor, they would get all of them back in on it. But they're not going to talk about that because that means that they'd lose even more confidence within the people and so on. Which I think is really funny because you can clearly tell that there is a huge shift towards the right in terms of like cultural hegemony and like the zeitgeist around us. So they can start saying this stuff now. They don't have to keep hiding it. But one of the biggest ideas behind the alt-right is keeping a layer of irony between what they are trying to say and what they actually say out loud. Motherfuckers will really say that they can't support Biden because him and Trump are on the same on immigration, and then turn around and nod when Bernie Sanders says the immigrants are taking American jobs via H1B visas. Again, I didn't read all of what Bernie said. I just agreed that the fact that they are exploitive. The idea of taking American jobs is a nativist idea in the first place and can be extremely nationalistic, like I've already mentioned, where it's like, oh, only Americans can have jobs. Only Americans can be exploited. But H-1B visas aren't taking American jobs because the Americans aren't taking them in the first place, right? It's one of the ideas. It's the funny thing, like, Trump once, like, what was it? Trump said something about, like, taking black jobs or whatever. And it's like, well, what are black jobs? What are white jobs? And all this other shit. And why aren't they being filled? Like, supposedly, if they're being taken, you're saying it as if they're being ripped away. No, they're just not being filled in the first place. Like, that's one of the reasons why you tend to see a lot of Latinos, and specifically Mexicans in, like, construction and blue-collar construction jobs, is because of things like work visas and the like. Because other people have come to understand that that work is too good for them, or isn't enough for them. Some people, and then some people can't get into it because of a lot of different things like trade schools and the like, or even trade unions that they don't want to be a part of because they're fucking conservative or whatever. But then people that immigrate to take it kind of get like a bit of a loophole around it because their labor is a lot cheaper and they can get paid under the table. It fills that position a lot quicker than going through all the jumps that are needed for like a Native American to have that same job. In the spat about H-1B visas, Elon claimed to come out against unashamed racist. But when it comes on meddling in European politics, he sides with the most racist far-right movements and shit over voracious attempts at balancing act respectably. The Reform Party needs a new leader for it. I really don't. Yeah, I highly doubt that Elon is against racism, no matter what it is he's said. He's a reactionary. There are plenty of reactionaries out there who will be against racism, but only whenever it's too, like, on the nose. You're like, dude, you gotta be a little bit more civil about it, right? It's the exact same thing about, like, whenever, like a Nazi and a KKK meet each other. Like, one of them, like, the Nazi will hate the KKK because the KKK is super, like, unabashed about it and, like, has no civility. But then the Nazi's like, hold on. Hold on. You gotta have a little bit of civility to it, right? Which, again, continues with all I've said before. not to go actually, but this has consistently been Bernie's position on H1B visas for decades now. Yeah, I mean, of course it is. Uh, I mean, look at like what he's been a part of, like historically. Like I remember way back before I even really became a leftist because I was fucking like 14. I remember hearing stuff about Bernie Sanders and being like, "Oh, he's pro immigration and taking like workers or whatever the fuck, right?" And like I would always hear them like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about," and I just like move on. Well, I oppose H1B visas because I think those workers should be naturalized and have the same rights as any other American. Okay, great. Who's going to give that to them? Because it's not that you're Trump and Well, I mean, no one's going to give it to them. The Democrats aren't going to give it to them. The Republicans aren't going to give it to them. Shit. If anything, I really don't think that people should be coming here for work in the first place because they're just going to get exploited, like by capitalists. But I mean, if you're that desperate, which a lot of people are, due to the American meddling in other countries and in their home countries, making them poor and impoverished, then I like you should come over for to see what you can get and do better for your families and the like. But it's one of those things that, like, that's just like a temporary fix. It's a band-aid to like a fucking gaping fucking wound on you. So I really like whenever I hear all this stuff about like immigration being like, oh, pro immigration, we need to be pro immigration. I'm like, yeah, dude, we need to be pro immigration, but these people are just going to be more exploited than like workers already are. Cheap labor is always going to be exploited more than like native people. That's just how it works, especially with neoliberalism. That's just how it works. Simply arguing that H1B visas shouldn't be a thing because they're exploitive is by no means helpful to immigrants who have no other path. Look, I was just talking about that. But H1B, you have to understand that even if there is no other path and they need to come to America to reap the benefits of the exploiter by being exploited instead of being impoverished and not having the same like fiscal reality or whatever, then I understand that. But you have to still understand the material conditions that exist with H1B visas. They are going to get heavily exploited. They are not going to be treated fairly. They are not going to be given the same equal opportunities. They are going to be stuck in probably one type of industry, and that will be it. And it will only further damn the future of their generations instead of any other possible path that might come about if H1B visas were different or there were different immigration protocols. I have no issue with H1B visas. I do. I do have an issue with them being used by oligarchs to work people 120 hours a week at a rate that's less than minimum wage, thereby driving down overall wages, increasing unemployment, and keeping people in the virtual slavery under the threat of deportation. Then that's the entire problem with H1B visas. Like, if you want a different visa, then get a different visa, right? If you want a visa to work differently, then it'd be a different visa, rather, I should say. Like, work visas specifically, that's just how they work. And I do not think that they should exist at all. But they will continue to exist because of corporate capitalism and everything along those lines. That's just how it'll be. There's a reason why the Twitter wants to increase I don't know what the fuck that's meaning. Increase H1B visas Oh, probably Elon. Right now, he gets 3% of the total U.S. of his companies. Tesla just laid off almost 3K workers in December, and Texas, and 4K in California and Texas this year alone. That means that they have 117 continuing and new H1B visas. Exactly. Exactly. Like, a lot of people think that Elon is stupid. He is stupid. He's absolutely fucking stupid. But when it comes like to corporate like shit, he has been so ingrained into the idea and like material reality of like the bourgeoisie for so long because of his dad and like his family history that he absolutely knows like what he is doing when it comes to that, right? At least to some extent, he knows what he is doing. That's why he wants certain things, and it's incredibly just individualistic and selfish. Great thread in H1B visas in real time. As a techie, I can tell you, you claim is not skilled American is a lie. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, anyone that says that because of H1B visas are, like, trying to get more IT people in because of, like, the thing that Elon said is absolutely a lie. There's more people in computer science programs right now in college than ever. But just purely because of the way of how hard it is to get jobs in the current market right now, because people are wanting to be well paid for all of the years they went through college but are not getting that, it's made hard on them. He's on a rampage because of H1B visas. Nick Fuentes, sorry, thank you for your vote. Now go fuck yourself. That's the message from the Republican Party. Fascist doesn't understand how fascists work, and that you're either with them or against them. There is no thinking for yourself. It is either you think that you're a free thinker or you get fucked. You can't just say employees exploit immigrants on H-1B visas without first acknowledging and addressing that it's the only path many of us have and we need them. Look, dude, I understand that for a lot of immigrants, it is the only path. But you also have to understand that you are getting exploited. And there is to say that there is only one path is a bit of an oversimplification. There are many paths for people to take once they come into this country for work, and hell, other places that they could possibly go, right? But because of the culture that I would imagine of like the idea that immigrants always go to America. And this has been just like the mythology behind America forever has been ingrained in like the world zeitgeist that it continues to be expounded upon. When you could go to some place that has a cheaper living, you might not get as much money, but you'd probably end up having a far better place to live. I mean, right off the bat, I want to say someplace like Cuba, but Cuba's in its own fucking like hellscape because of embargoes and the like. But again, that's shit. That ends up being its own thing, right? That ends up being its own issue of realizing that the reason why immigrants are coming to America in the first place is because of what America has done to their home countries. So, yeah, you can't. Let's just read this one more time. You can't just say employees exploit immigrants on H-1B visas without first acknowledging. I think it has to be the other way around, though. It has to be. It has to first be you need to address exploitation. You need to address the exploitation that is happening. And the reason why it is the only path. The reason why it's the only path for a lot of people, or presumed to be the only path for a lot of people. So, yeah. MAGA is about to blow their shit. Tech bros like Elon and Jeff Bezos have been firing American workers in droves as they secure mass amounts of H-1B visas to replace us for cheaper labor that can't unionize and can't leave their jobs. Happy New Year. Well, of course. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that someplace down the line with Elon and Trump is you will end up getting some form of privilege by being American that secures you financially or societally, having some sort of privilege beyond what is currently given to you through like the act of being American and white, that will make people a lot more comfortable with having their jobs being laid off and replaced with cheaper labor. But I think I've talked about this enough. So if you want to support me, I have a Patreon down below. Thank you all. Leave a comment and like, comment, subscribe, all that other stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.